Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Health and Wellness webinar, Bridging Nutrient Gaps, Insights on GLP-1 and Opportunities for Produce. We are so delighted to have two wonderful speakers today, brought to you by the Foundation for Fresh Produce. My name is Katie Calagaro. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Foundation, and it is my pleasure to host you today for our first webinar of 2025. For those who don't know, we at the Foundation for Fresh Produce are growing a healthier world by changing the trajectory of human health. And we believe that fruits and vegetables are the answer. We need to remove barriers that prevent people from eating them. And in thinking about those barriers, we're focused on 4 strategic outcomes that you see listed here. 1, boosting appeal, improving the appeal and driving demand of fruits and vegetables through culturally relevant content. We need consumers to eat them, right? Improving access, it's just that. Making them accessible can make it easier to eat more. Nurturing fruit and vegetable professionals, offering professional development and educational resources for professionals like you, truly an important component for boosting appeal and helping us create the access that we need. And scaling partner impact, forming strategic alliances and stakeholder engagements that strengthen our collective global impact. So as a global foundation, thinking globally and acting locally, this work all culminates here in the US through our Have a Plant digital ecosystem, and it helps us come together with unified messaging. So you all may be aware of Have a Plant campaign, but for those who aren't, these are programs that are committed to helping consumers live happier, healthier lives by boosting appeal of fruits and vegetables. We talked about compelling content. This is to inspire consumers at every point of where they're making decisions, especially on digital and social. We're distributing science-based, consumer-focused resources and food, nutrition, and health community engagement tools throughout the ecosystem, and this includes fruitsandveggies.org, our social media channels, as well as our newsletters. We also have resources to support the health and wellness professional community through specific, unique fruit and veggie insights and communications tools. So you'll see here, we have a lot of consumer behavior and nutrition research. We have toolkits with promotional ideas, seasonal recipes, turnkey social media posts, and more. And webinars like the one you're here watching today, where we unpack new research related to growing consumption of fruits and vegetables, and then we share practical ways to implement it in your respective communities. So all of this is available at your fingertips at fruitsandveggies.org/educational resources. So before we begin, a couple of housekeeping notes. We wanted to let you know that this webinar is available for 1 CPEU credit in accordance with the Commission on Dietetic Registration CPEU Prior Approval Program. That's a mouthful. But you will receive your certificate via email after this event. And guess what? You can sit back, relax, take it all in because you're going to get the link to the certificate, but also the webinar recording and a PDF of this presentation. So you can take some notes, but we really want you to stay engaged and ask questions throughout. So about questions, go ahead and don't hold on to them because we're going to come back to them at the end. We want you to not forget, so you can put them right in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen here, and I will be moderating as we go. And after Amaris and Joan get through their presentation, we'll take about the last 10 to 15 minutes to answer your questions and have a conversation. Okay, so now that you've got all the logistics and housekeeping, let's start to dig in. Here are the learning objectives for today's webinar listed for your review. And I'd like to get right to it in introducing our speakers. So we've got Amaris Noguera Bradley, a registered dietitian and strategic nutrition communicator with over 14 years of experience, currently serving as Senior Vice President at Eat Well Global. There, she leads impactful initiatives to transform the food and nutrition landscape. So thank you for your partnership here. We also have our beloved Dr. Joan Salge Blake, who is a clinical professor at Boston University, an award-winning nutrition communications expert, and host of the Spot On podcast. She has also shared numerous amounts of nutrition expertise through thousands of media interviews and speaking engagements across her career. You'll see the disclosures are listed at the bottom of the slide, but I'm not going to take one more second to introduce these lovely ladies. I'm going to turn it over for us to dig right in. So thank you. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Katie. I am so excited to be here. Thanks to the Foundation for Fresh Produce team for having me. And like Katie noted, let's jump right in. I'm Senior Vice President here at Eatwell Global. I oversee our North America client portfolio, and we're a strategy and communication agency, and we work squarely within the food and health space and industries. And what that means is we deliver critical insights, strategies, and engagement plans, as you can see here, for stakeholders and our clients in the food and health space. So I'm excited to share with you today some of our insights work, and specifically share the insights that we have around GLP-1 medications and some behavior change insights that we have learned both from consumers that are taking these medications as well as the dietitians counseling them. So I'm going to start at the beginning and talk a little bit about, lay the groundwork for what GLP-1 receptor agonists are. They are a class of medications, and we use GLP-1 as a short form, but that stands for glucagon-like peptide 1. Originally, because these drugs have been around for some time, these drugs were created to help improve blood sugar control for those living with diabetes. But as I believe we all know by now, they have also been found to aid in weight loss, which is how and partly why they've gotten much more widespread use. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how these drugs work. And you can see here in the diagram, GLP-1 receptor agonists, they mimic this hormone called GLP-1. And they activate the GLP-1 receptor. So I'm not going to have a biochem class right now. But what I do want to share is how this hormone, GLP-1, plays an important role in the body, particularly in regulating blood sugar levels, but also by impacting a number of organs, as you can see here. So in the brain, GLP-1 acts to help reduce hunger and promote satiety or feelings of fullness. In the pancreas, GLP-1 helps stimulate the pancreas to release insulin when blood sugar levels are high. Since we know insulin is a hormone that helps lower blood sugar levels, so that's a positive. And GLP-1s also help suppress the release of glucagon, which is a hormone that raises blood sugar levels. Then we see down in here in the stomach that GLP-1s slow the emptying of food from the stomach, which again helps, you feel full longer and helps reduce appetite. And then there are, as you can see in purple here, some indirect effects of GLP-1 RAs, which include in the liver, increasing insulin sensitivity and helping prevent the liver from releasing too much glucose into the bloodstream. So a lot of synergistic and interconnected mechanisms at play. But in short, you can see how GLP-1 receptor agonists really have a broad impact across a number of organs. And I believe that's going to be helpful for helping us better understand why we see some of the side effects that we've seen, which I'll cover off in some upcoming slides. So we know that the mechanisms behind this class of medications, because they have been studied widely, we know their efficacy. And these medications and those taking these medications have seen about a 20% reduction in about 6 to 12 months, which is, of course, notable. And there's also been some other interesting findings, which you can see here as far as reducing the risk of heart attack risk by about 20%. So we're seeing already in the literature some additional benefits beyond just weight status. You may have seen other things also in the news as well. And moving on to kind of the current landscape that we live in, we know there's a lot of interest in these medications, and for the dietitians and health professionals on the line, this probably comes as no surprise. But as you can see here on the slide, with 42% of Americans living with obesity, 15% living with diabetes, and 40% of Americans wanting to lose weight, naturally, there's a big market and appeal for those wanting to better their weight and their health status. Additionally, on the right hand of the side in the orange there, you see we have reason to believe that this public interest in this medication, it's not going to wane anytime soon. As far as the current usage, as you can see here, about 1 in 8 adults in the US have been estimated to use the drug. And sources say or forecast that about 18 million people are going to be on these GLP-1s by 2029. That's just a few short years away. We're going to blink and it'll be here. And on this next slide, I'll show how, this anticipated rise in GLP-1 is really due to the fact that some new forms and therapies have launched in the past year or in 2024 with the launch of compounding medications that are now available via Noom and Hims and Hers and others, as well as the generic injection form. But as you can see, coming next year, the patents for the main brands of Ozempic and Wegovy, et cetera, are going to expire. And that means that the generic versions of those will be made available. So that really further extends the access and availability of these medications. So where does that leave us? While the drug has been studied at length, as we know, what's interesting is that the optimal diet composition for this audience has not been studied or tested at length. And we know that healthcare professionals are concerned that the reduced caloric intake among this patient population taking these medications can or may lead to malnutrition or inadequate protein and micronutrient intake as we have here. So since we know that dietitians have a breadth of extensive experience and expertise in this space of weight management and low-calorie diets, we at Eat Well Global wanted to really gather insights from both GLP-1 users and the dietitians that are counseling these folks to better understand the experience, the behaviors of these users, and also what those key dietary needs were or are for this audience, so that ultimately the overall health and well-being could be best supported. And that is what we are going to uncover in my upcoming slides. So just to give you a sense of who we surveyed for this insights work, it was a solid representative sample and swath of both GLP-1 users, 720 folks taking the medications, and 432 dietitians that are counseling patients taking these GLP-1s. And those 720 folks are folks that have used or are currently using the medication for either diabetes or weight loss, although 64% of them were primarily taking it for diabetes. And then for the dietitians that we surveyed, over 70% had about 11 plus years of experience. So these were more seasoned folks. 93% of them were or are day-to-day giving recommendations to patients on nutrition and diet. So these are really dietitians on the front lines with this patient population. So let's jump into our learnings from these two surveys. As you can see here, the vast majority of GLP-1 users are very satisfied with the results. So as you can see, 74% are really pleased with the impact of the drug on their weight goals. 75% are really satisfied with their overall health and well-being after being on the drug. And then in the far right in the blue box, kind of just shifting gears to the professionals, the dietitians, these satisfaction numbers are a little bit lower. And that's really due to dietitians' lingering concern around potential side effects, perhaps the long-term efficacy, or really more specifically, we learned that about 66% of dietitians are concerned about reliance on the medication overall or in the long term. So clearly within, that dietitian subset, the concerns are a bit greater than what the consumers themselves are worried about. However, that said, while about 3/4 of users are satisfied with their results, just over half have experienced side effects from taking the medication. And I'm sure a lot of you on the line have heard about these. You can see in the bar graph on the right, these side effects range from symptoms of reduced appetite, nausea, constipation, abdominal pain. So clearly predominantly GI related or gastrointestinal related issues. And that, of course, makes sense, considering that the stomach is one of the main organs that is impacted by the drug. But we'll dig a little deeper because it is worth noting that these symptoms or these adverse side effects really are short term. So, we know that they appear soon or shortly after the injection is given. And then about 77% of users, as you can see here, have symptoms that only last about 24 hours. So, within a day of taking the medication, those side effects have really waned. And what's also important is that even among those users who are experiencing these side effects, over half are really unconcerned about the medication. So all of these GLP-1 users, whether or not they're experiencing side effects, really report similar satisfaction with the medication's impact on their weight and on their overall health and well-being. All right, so here's where it gets really interesting for us. Our research found that these GLP-1 medications have also stimulated some other beneficial eating and behavior changes. And we know that this patient population has decreased appetite. So you can see that on the first bar in the graph in the orange. So they're eating less frequently, but they're also drinking more fluids, and they're avoiding certain spicy, or fatty foods. And our pulse on dietitians there in the blue box really reported or found the same findings, that they're seeing that behavior across all genders and ages. So let's take a closer look at what those kind of new dietary choices, those behaviors are in these GLP-1 users. Okay, so first and foremost, look at what these folks are turning to. Fruits and vegetables is the first thing on the list. You can see that really impressive 67% orange bar. That is pretty amazing. 67% of GLP-1 users are consuming more fruits and vegetables now after taking the drug than before they were taking the drug. And for us, that's pretty remarkable. We also see that they're consuming more fiber, which, surprise, surprise, you can also get from fruits and vegetables. You can also see, further down on the list, 25% are eating more legumes and pulses. So I think we can all agree that these are some really positive shifts and totally aligned with the dietary guidelines for Americans and the categories of food that we're pretty regularly and diligently trying to encourage folks to consume. So let's next take a look at what these folks are drinking. Interestingly, water is still the beverage of choice by far for these folks. But as you can see, your runner-ups really include teas, flavored waters, but also 100% fruit juice. And that's 100% juice with no added sugar. So 25% are consuming more 100% juice with no added sugar. And what I also want to draw your attention to further down in the bar graph is that 51% are consuming less fruit drinks. And those are fruit drinks that have added sugar. So again, that's a really positive swap that we're seeing. And on the snacking front, let's understand what these folks are snacking on. The headline here is that there is another shift happening from more indulgent snacks to lighter and more functional snacks. So again, looking at the bar graph, 43% of these GLP-1 users are consuming more nuts and seeds. Over a third are consuming more protein shakes and powders and meal replacements. So interesting also to see that move toward lighter, more nutrient-dense snacks and options. And then beyond purely dietary shifts, we're also seeing some other habits emerge beyond that, which is also quite interesting for us. So we can see, as we pulse kind of bigger picture, zooming out from just what folks are consuming and putting in their mouth, we know that these GLP-1 users are also monitoring their portion sizes. So they're more tuned in. They're being more consistent and diligent with their hydration. They're being mindful in their cooking and eating, and they've increased their physical activity also, as well as further down on the list here, decrease their alcohol consumption and decrease their emotional and stress eating. So again, just to take a step back, and as a registered dietitian myself, I think it's important to note and acknowledge how major these behavioral shifts are. And this is not something that we've typically seen from just a medication alone. And then there's a little bit more that we uncovered as well. So most of these GLP-1 users that we surveyed are cooking more or most of their meals at home. They're choosing smaller portions. They're opting for kind of more snack side portions. And again, which, fruits and vegetables are great for. And 43% of them are also looking for foods high in protein. And we wanted to better understand, kind of in light of all of those behavior shifts and changes, what is the budgetary impact? What's the impact on the wallet for these folks making these shifts and these changes? And what we learned in part was that these GLP-1 users, they've increased their spending on food and groceries. And as you can see here, on health-related expenses, those are things like supplements and gym memberships, which is also intriguing. But look at what they've trimmed back. So the gray, let's see, the bars at the very bottom in the teal, they've trimmed back on entertainment and leisure activities and social activities. So it's interesting that these users are generally netting out with their shifts as far as where their money is going, but there's definitely a distinct change that has taken place. Okay, so a few more slides from me before I turn it over to Joan, but I'm going to wrap by sharing some additional intel on what we learned as far as the optimal companion products, if you will, for folks on these drugs. And by companion products, I really mean what ideally complements the dietary needs of the individuals on these medications. So when we ask dietitians, what specific nutrients or features or benefits do you consider essential for folks taking these GLP-1s? And there was an overwhelming response that companion products need to be high in protein and need to be portion controlled and high in fiber. And this definitely sounds like an opportunity for high fiber fruits and vegetables and plant-based proteins like legumes and pulses, which is really exciting, of course. And then, when we asked both dietitians and GLP-1 users, what nutrients and foods are most important for you to prioritize? And both, we found interesting, said protein right out of the gate. So obviously that's the first nutrient right there at the top of the bar charts. But then for dietitians, fiber was the second most important nutrient, whereas for GLP-1 users, fiber was, fourth on the list. So, considering what we know about the organs that this drug impacts and also the side effects that some of these folks are experiencing, albeit in the short term, we know fiber is key and also a wildly underconsumed nutrient population-wide. So there is an opportunity to elevate the importance of fiber among these GLP-1 users. And then the last nugget I'm going to leave you with is this one on supplementation. So perhaps not surprisingly, folks on these medications can benefit, or folks on these medications can benefit from supplementation because we know their intake has decreased, their appetites waned. So we want to make sure we're addressing any malnutrition or undernutrient intake concerns that healthcare professionals have expressed in past insights that we've garnered. But what we did found interesting was that 37% of GLP-1 users reported that they purchase supplements most often when taking the drug. You can see that survey question that we pulse them on. So among those who do purchase supplements, and shifting your attention to the right side of the slide here, they're not just taking multivitamins there at the top, but the second most common supplement that they're taking are probiotics and digestive health supplements, like you see here. So, of course, there's also a tie in there to fruits and vegetables and legumes because those categories are also helpful sources of fiber and those valuable prebiotics. So again, just a little bit of an extra nugget to leave with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Joan. Thank you.
Thank you, Amaris. Wow, that was a great overview. So let's get down to some of the practical applications of what can happen when you are on, or your patients or clients are on these medications. So here we go. Medscape right this month. This is the million-dollar question. Are patients on GLP-1s getting the right nutrients? Guess what? That's our jobs as registered dietitian nutritionists to find out and help them along with there. Now, the guidelines, as Amara said, is there's really a lack of evidence to determine unique needs of GLP-1 users. And this is a great paper in Obesity Pillars. And we don't really understand what their unique needs are because they're just originally on it. But there are some wonderful advice that we need to make sure that we can stay on top of. And that's our job as registered dietitian nutritionists. This is a fabulous article that just came out in our academy in 2025 by Gigoletti. This is increment-based therapies and lifestyle interventions, the evolving role of the RDN in obesity care. And, not evolving. We were there. We were there first with counseling and counseling people to help them better manage their weight. So we know what we're doing and we have the best experience. Amaris alluded to their side effects, okay? So taking these medications, nausea side effects, constipation, diarrhea, this may not exactly be a day at the beach when you're taking these medications. And again, what we saw from Amaris's research there, that look at nausea and constipation were in the top 3 of what people were experiencing and concerned about. So with nausea, we got to be talking about, maybe regularly eating smaller portions, eat more slowly, limit high fat or spicy foods. Make sure the fluid intake is where it is, and watch the carbonated beverages. But constipation, high fiber foods, and with our beloved fruits and vegetables and whole grains, staying hydrated, keeping active. Maybe you need a fiber supplement or a stool softener. And with diarrhea, we need to watching again what we already know to avoid sugar, alcohols, watch that caffeine, the alcohol, the carbonated beverages, and maybe look at what type of fiber that we're having. Another fascinating resource from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the evolving role of registered dietitian nutritionists in obesity management with medications and lifestyle interventions. And this is quote right out of this wonderful article here. Rather than placing the focus on achieving calorie reduction with these new medications. And remember, we don't have to worry about calorie reduction. The medication is taking care of that. They're already reducing their calorie intake because they're reducing their appetite and increasing their satiety. But rather, we should be focused on nutrient quality, adequate nutrient intake, regular food intake, sufficient protein consumption, and adequate fluid consumption. So back to this wonderful article that's in our journal, there are some suggested nutrition interventions that we should be looking at. And that is nutritional adequacy of the diet, protein, hydration, fiber, and vitamins and minerals. So let's start with the first one, with nutrition adequacy. So we need to be making sure that they're having an adequate diet based on their food history and prevalence and their culturally wanted foods that they would like to eat. And we have to help them with a pattern that is healthy. We know now based on science that the DASH diet or the Mediterranean diet or eat the My Plate, all are based on patterns that we know can promote health and long-term health. But we also, of course, have to make sure we are very much aligned that are culturally appropriate for whoever who is eating these foods or patterns. So this way we have long-term health. We have to make sure that we really are doing this so that they can improve their diet long term. Let me give you some very depressing news here. This is from the Dietary Guidelines of Americans. And what they did is they have, I'm sure we all know this, the Healthy Eating Index. And this measures how food choices align with the dietary guidelines. So the higher the score, the better you align with the dietary guidelines. If you have a dietary healthy eating index of 100, you nailed it. You're doing great. This is what the healthy eating index of Americans are. Look at this. You take all the adults on average, all of them on average, their score is a 59. Now, at Boston University, if I give a final and my students get a 59, they just flunked the exam and possibly the course. So when these people are going in, average Joe and Josephine on the street, when taking these medications, we know right off the bat that their diet is unlikely where it should be. So they need our health and our guidance. So let's look at the next one, protein intake. What do we have to focus on when we look at the protein intake? 3 things: quantity, quality, and timing. So looking at a wide variety of protein sources is going to be important. We need a minimum of 60 grams daily and up to 1.2 to 1.5 grams per kilogram per ideal body weight to meet their protein needs. Luckily, we can get this easily from food groups. We know this. Look at dairy, wonderful, good sources. Look at, lean meats and poultry. This is a 3-ounce portion. That's a big, big number. We also have dried peas and nuts. Also very, very good plant-based protein sources. What's also we have to look at is the quality of the protein. So this is the grams of protein, but what's snuck in here is the amount of saturated fat. That's the yellow bars. So just because they're having great sources of protein, we got to change that habit away from getting to a lot of heart unhealthy saturated fats. You could be having wonderful lean meats, but if you start having fatty meats, look what happens to the saturated fat. Look at down here, dry beans. Are these absolutely beautiful or what? This is for a measly, half cup. So beans and nuts, great source of protein, low saturated fat. When it comes to protein, timing is everything in life. Excuse me. You need to distribute protein throughout the day to maximize protein synthesis. I need to hydrate, which is the next one. Hydrating. Amaris said that they need to have enough beverages a day. What's recommended is 64 fluid ounces of hydration. But look at this. Look at this produce. This is the percentage of water. So with produce, you get nutrient density, but you also get hydration, water. That's 2 for the price of 1. When you're looking at fiber, according to the dietary guidelines, more than 90% of women, 97% of men do not meet the recommended intakes for dietary fiber. Why? Let's look at this. This is from the dietary guidelines. Here, this is the amount of the population that are either meeting the minimum recommendations or going overboard. This is the percentage that are not getting enough. Look what they're not getting enough of. Fruits, vegetables, or whole grains. No wonder why they're falling short on their fiber intake. This is a time where we need to change their diet to get the fiber in that they need. Currently recommended 14 grams per 1,000 calories that reduce the constipation. Here we go again. Look where they're coming from. Gorgeous, whole grains, but fruits and vegetables are right there with fiber. Look at beans. Is this gorgeous? Unbelievable. Great source of protein and also great source of fiber. If you go to the wonderful Have a Plant website, fruits and vegetables that contain 5 grams or more of fiber per reference amount are considered high in fiber. Look at this. Who knew about apples? Affordable, great. Beans, of course. Fruits and vegetables that contain 2.5 grams, but less than 5, are considered a good source of fiber. Look at these. And if you go to the Have a Plant website, fruitsandvegetables.org, you're going to see, click on all of these links, and you'll get information about the nutrient content of all these wonderful, wonderful foods. The last thing we have to talk about, and Maris talked about, is vitamins and minerals. Well, yes, for sure, they probably most likely need vitamins and minerals because then they're eating less. But more importantly, have you ever gone down the vitamin and mineral, aisle at a pharmacy? It's like the Wild West. They may be taking supplements, but they have no idea what they're taking and if they're taking the right ones. That's where we, as registered dietitians, have to come in and advise them so that they get helpful and do no harm. So I want you to think about the 3 Ps. When dealing with these clients or patients that have it, think the 3 Ps: produce, fiber and nutrients, protein, and plenty of fluids. So think about that when you're going to be looking to help them change their diet. And you need help in the kitchen? Here you go. Amara said that they're cooking more. I love it. We know that when people cook more rather than going out, they lower the saturated fat, added sugars, and added sodium in the diet, and their fruits and vegetables go up. Let's keep them in the kitchen. So at the Have a Plant website, you have recipes. So you can work with these individuals to find out what their needs are, what their cultural preferences are, and how to help them get more produce, which will give you water and fiber and nutrients in their diet. So what I did for you is I went through the website, and let me tell you, it's a delicious website. And I came up with 5 breakfasts, lunch, and dinners that will help you get the 3 Ps: produce, fiber, nutrients, protein, and plenty of fluids. When you download this and this gets sent to you, all of these are clickable. So you are going to be able to click on them and get right to the recipe. The orange creamsicle breakfast, love it. What does it contain? The produce: peaches and mandarin oranges. Protein, we have milk. Fluids, you have to put ice in it, milk. Excellent breakfast muffins. Egg prices are going down. Yes. We have broccoli, we have peppers, we have eggs, milk, and cheese. The milkshake, we have oats, whole grains, bananas, milk, almond butter, and milk. For lunch, oops, went too fast. For lunch, soup recipes that are a great source of protein and lentils. We have a slow cooker minestrone soup, plenty of vegetables, kidney beans, and broth. And they want to cook in the kitchen, but they also would like leftovers. So they make this for dinner and they can have it the next day for lunch. Many of them have home offices. And at dinner, look at this: slow cooker Italian meatballs. I'm 110% Italian. Look at these beauties. And look at this: canned tomato spinach. Look what this is: frozen chicken or turkey meatballs. Because they may want to cook, but maybe not on a Tuesday night. Maybe they want to just throw things together. So this gives them permission to look at some ready prepared foods, high in protein, good for them. Chicken stock, we get fluids in here, and on and on. So these are all available to you. They are a click away for you to use to help your clients or patients when they are on these medications. We are the nutrition experts. We are the only ones on the healthcare team that are trained to help them with nutrition. And I believe that they need good nutrition advice when they are on these medications.
Joan, Amaris, I didn't come back on camera because the Q&A is blowing up, okay? I'm in here trying to manage everything. Wow. Lots to unpack here. People are obviously very interested in this topic. So I'm gonna try to go through. There's a lot of questions, both like about the study, but then there's also questions about the medication and like how we're prescribing it, when we're stopping it, like, you know what I'm saying? So I need to kind of go through here and maybe hand pick a few, but this has been fantastic. I want to let Joan have a minute to get some water. Let's see here. And Amaris, maybe you could help me
Yeah.
kind of go through and were there any that kind of stood out for you? Because I'm just kind of, there's literally like almost 25 questions in
I know. I mean, I can start at the top. I see a question from Marilyn about the heart
yes.
disease risk, and there were several questions around kind of the behavior change and the impetus for the main driver of it. But on the heart disease risk, what we know is that by taking the medication, so GLP-1s themselves do help with some of the risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So it is, it like also reduces oxidative stress. So there are some kind of cardioprotective effects that is catalyzed by the GLP-1s. But then also, obviously, some of the known effects as far as helping control blood sugar as a risk factor helps. And then so it's both, right? There's some physiological impacts that are positive that affect the heart disease risk. And then there are the behavior changes around the dietary shifts that also support that. Obviously, even like decreased weight helps with the risk factor profile. So all of that is at play.
Are users making these changes due to dietary counseling, changing tastes, or both? And I think somebody else kind of said that too. Like, was it because of the counseling, and are people required to get nutrition education with the drug? Maybe we can tackle those two
all at the same time.
together.
Yeah. So let me be clear. Just because someone's taking this medication does not mean that they're seeing a dietitian. So they can very well be taking the medication without that additional care and counsel from a nutrition professional. So I know there was a question about how often clients are seeing dietitians on what foods to eat and consume. It's not consistent. However, as far as, oh gosh, what was the original question? Whether the effects are, the weight loss effects are because of kind of the new counsel that they're given. There is, not exclusively. So there is definitely a brain-gut connection at play here, because part of what the GLP-1 drug does also is kind of reduce cravings. You may have heard this language before. There's just not as much of the urge or desire, or even maybe pleasure from consuming some of the more indulgent foods. So there's less of an appetite overall, less of an appetite for perhaps some of the richer foods that were consumed before. There's decreased, calorie intake overall. So just at baseline, some of those results we're seeing in patients from the drug. But I think also for the practitioners on the line, we also know there's a motivational incentive here that, as folks are seeing results, they're motivated to and empowered to make more changes. And that could be what's partly catalyzing the broader, behavioral changes as far as health, monitoring their health and being mindful of portion sizes and going for those, the lighter, more functional options, taking the supplements. It's a different, mindset that the drug catalyzes, but also there are very much tangible, real things happening in the system that is helping with the weight loss. So it's definitely both at play. What we, as a dietitian, also what I posit is that the optimal pairing is having a patient on GLP-1 see a dietitian, because what we're also looking for is long-term behavior change. And there was a question also, and then I'm going to stop talking so Joan can chime in. I also saw a question about, what happens when you get off the drugs and the weight gain. And there are studies on that. You can Google and dig up, but studies have seen as much as a 2/3 weight gain back, even complete weight gain back after getting off the drug. So, we I think do have to get sharper on how to titrate the drug, matching with behavior change for optimal longer term outcome, because otherwise there could be a dependency in the long term.
I'd love to just weigh in on this. This is our moment. Okay, we are the experts in nutrition counseling. This is our moment. This is crazy for these people to be given these drugs without nutritional guidance. I did my private practice on weight management for 100 years. When they're losing weight, they're so happy. So when they're happy, this is the time when you start making behavioral changes and changes in their diet. And they start making these changes, and the food noise, as goes down when they're on these medications. So what we want to do is go in now when they're happy and make these lifestyle changes of more fruits and vegetables, lean meats, more fiber in their diet. So when they decide, maybe I've lost the weight, I want to go off, they have a better chance of keeping the weight off. And nobody can do this other than registered dietitian nutritionists. The doctor doesn't have time. They're going to say, here, just eat more fruits and vegetables. But how are they going to do it? So this is an unbelievable opportunity for us to counsel these people and really help them turn around a lifestyle of a 59 on the healthy eating index to possibly passing, maybe 75, maybe 80, a B plus, going for an A, even better.
So I'm hearing there's an opportunity to create long-term behavior change. And that's the role that that's a huge opportunity right now as we talk about habits and what is making it easy, what forms a habit, right? It's got to be easy, it's got to be enjoyable, it's got to be flavorful, it's got to check a lot of boxes for people to want to repeat it and keep doing it. So that there's a real opportunity here to make fruits and vegetables part of
Right.
the process.
I want to say, Katie, that as dietitians, we should be reaching out to, endocrinologists or doctors that are giving this medication, say, hey, I can help your patients have a better success rate and improve their diet. And when I'm improving their diet with more produce and high fiber, I'm reducing their risk of hypertension, heart disease, type 2 diabetes. I mean, this is like unbelievable opportunity for us.
It really is. There's been a few questions, Amaris, you kind of tapped on it for a second, but I think this is personally probably a really customized answer, but like people have questions about whether or not this is a long-term drug or going off of it. Can you stay on it forever? Are you not? Like, what thoughts on that?
Yeah. The literature shows that weight gain to varying extents happens after getting off the drug. I don't know definitively how much research there has been on folks that might continue seeing a dietitian after getting off the drug. But I do know that there have been a number of experts that have stood up, and said that is really key here to help these patients decrease their dose, or just ensure that the lifestyle changes continue, without, the drug, or the original dose or whatnot. So I think that's a gray area. We don't, have all the answers in. But when I also, personally think of typically the individuals taking these drugs might not be individuals that are, totally living alone. They might be living with a family. There could be also, beneficial effects, indirect effects to the whole family when folks are given that counsel, on, lifestyle changes for health overall. So.
Mhm, mhm. What I have been told from medical professionals that these drugs were meant to stay on long term, just like if you had hypertension, you had to stay on a hypertension medication. But with hypertension medication, sometimes if you make lifestyle changes, you can get off the medication. So it's we don't know yet, but I see only benefit from helping them along with their diet and lifestyle while they're on it to see if maybe they can go off it and maintain their weight loss, or maybe there might be, they go on it and they go off it and they come back on it. But we all know that by improving their diet is only going to hopefully increases their success rate, and we know it's going to increase their long-term health.
That's it. I love this question from Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia. Are other ethnic groups like Hispanics turning to GLP-1s? You wrote it here, but let's answer it live so people got to say it again.
Yeah. So yes, the short answer is Hispanics are also taking the drug. However, our insights, of the, 700 and change consumers on the drug that we surveyed, the vast majority, 69%, were female, 35 to 54 years old, and white, Caucasian. So what we see as far as the demographic breakdown is that after, white women, it is, or just, Caucasian white, GLP-1 users, Black African American users are next, and then followed by Hispanics. So Hispanics kind of do trail behind those other groups.
This is great. Is there anything else that either of you would like to kind of riff on for a minute, or just summary thoughts? We have about 9 minutes left.
I think
while I kind of scroll through here again and see if there's any
right.
last minute. Yeah.
I think that some dietitians are afraid of these medications, or they have concerns about it because they're new on it. And I think they can be a wonderful help for a lot of people. We know that biology plays a big impact on person's body weight. And this could help a lot of people who maybe for a long time weren't able to successfully lose weight. And when they lose weight, they maybe can become more active. They feel better. And so, I think that this is a tool. This is a tool that can be used to help people lose weight. And it's something that it's a tool, but it also is diet counseling and lifestyle changes. Those are also tools. So we have this toolbox, and we have to put all these things together to better help adults to better manage their weight. And, as Amara said, over 40% of Americans are considered in the category of obesity, and the same amount, 40%, are interested in this. So we have another tool to possibly work with to help them change their diet that can really change their long-term health.
There's an interesting question here from Jacqueline Marcus, a dietitian, about protein emphasis. And I'm sure, Joan, you'll have a perspective on this too, but it's a two-part question. One is why there's so much emphasis on protein. And you noted it correctly. Your hypothesis is right, Jacqueline. So what we've seen is because of the weight loss, there's a keen need to ensure that the muscle mass is preserved. And protein, consumption helps with that, along with just the satiety and all of that. But your second question too, around how are plant proteins viewed by users other than, protein, fiber, vitamin interests? We didn't pulse specifically on perspectives or sentiment around plant proteins from this GLP-1 user base, but we do know that just because folks are on these drugs doesn't immediately mean they're, deeply educated on all things food and nutrition. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for educating the GLP-1 patient population on the broad universe of protein options, including plant proteins. We know, as we could see, like fiber was lower on the priority list, and that perhaps isn't too surprising based on, perhaps the typical U.S. diet, American diet that these folks may have been on before. But I think that's certainly an education opportunity. Joan, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yes, we know, even regular weight loss with counseling, we know that you lose a lean body mass when you lose weight. So what we don't know right now is, do you have more lean body weight loss when you're on these medications, or is it about the same? So it doesn't matter whether they're trying to lose weight. That's why you need to be you want to have enough protein and spread it out the day for a maximum protein synthesis. When it comes to plant-based protein, you know, the food prices are out of control, and a lot of people are having a hard time, with their food budget. A lot of them are turning to beans, canned beans and pulses to expand their protein and fiber sources at each meal. You have a chili, instead of putting in maybe 2 pounds of ground beef or 2 pounds of ground turkey, you maybe do 1 pound and add a ton of beans. And by doing that, your food dollar goes down, your nutrient density will go up, and your fiber will go up. So again, getting them to look at all varieties of protein, but most importantly, spreading it out during the day rather than banking it all the majority late at night at dinner, which is usually their big meal.
Very good. Any insights on the future? I've got a couple questions here. Are all GLP-1s created equal? Are there any opportunities for children, or do you think that the college kids are going to be using more of the drug? Any implications for the future that you all see? Are we getting more available to other life stages outside of insurance? What's the landscape look like as we head in down this path at this point?
Wow, good questions.
I know there's a lot.
So right now, GLP-1s are approved by FDA for use in those 12 and above. So pretty, I think originally lower than I even realized at first. So 12 and above. I, think that as far as prevalence in the college student population, that's concerning. I think it certainly could be. I mentioned how next year, 2026, a lot of these drugs will be going, several of the drugs will be going generic. Patents will be wrapping or expiring. And so the availability can expand, the, affordability could shift for folks. It is, either your insurance covers it or you pay out of pocket, or, purchase through other channels, but it's still a decently pricey medication. So as far as the college student population, I mean, there's so many issues on college campuses. Food security, for one, like low budgets, for one. Obviously, these many college students are still on their, parent or legal guardian insurance plans, so it's not impossible. But there's also obviously major, body image issues and stigma, et cetera. And so that I think is a really, I would look to, I don't have any data on that space. And I would say like a quick heads up and flag for all the kind of college health on-campus health centers who may have this coming their way, because I do think that's a particularly kind of heightened sensitive user base that we'd want to make sure, are being monitored or have access to counseling as well.
This is another reason why RDNs have to be part of this journey with these individuals, because this could lead to disordered eating. And so RDNs understand that and know what's going on. So we got to make sure that this is not being misused, and if it's not something where it's going to lead into disordered eating. So that's really, really important. So yes, and you saw on the slide there, Gen Zs were interested in this drug. So again, we have to make sure as dietitians that we are, and there's plenty of dietitians that work with the college population, is looking at that and seeing, who may be on it and what their diet is really looking like, and do they need other support because maybe they don't really need this medication. So again, here we go again. We're right in the driver's seat again, looking at the total diet and lifestyle to see what's appropriate for the people who are on these medications.
Awesome. Well, we are just about at time. Any final remarks, or thank everybody on the phone. There's almost 400 people on, and still so many questions just keep coming in. We just certainly don't have time to get to all of them. Again, this presentation recording and the slides will be available on our website at fruitsandveggies.org/educational resources. I popped it in the link or in the chat here. We will also be emailing everybody all of this information as well as your CPEU certificate. I really want to thank Joan and Amaris for being with us today. We could probably have a 2.0 at some point, ladies, let's go for it. So I'm just going to close us up. I think, we heard a lot today, but if there is anything that you retain beyond all of the great information, fruitsandveggies.org is your number one-stop shop for all things recipes. Joan did a great job of kind of teeing up how you can use this for you, but also it's a great resource for consumers as well, and for you to help your clients and patients as we're navigating through this unique opportunity ahead of us. So I want to thank again Joan and Amaris, and we hope you all have a wonderful day, a happy, healthy day, and I hope you find many occasions to have a plant. Thank you all for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks so much.